and thought, well, what am I going to do now? Do I go back into being a cabin crew, or do I think of something else that I want to do? So for a time, I went back to dental nursing, and I worked just covering somebody on maternity leave. I went to work for him for about 12 months, and then I got another job as cabin crew. Unfortunately, that didn't last long either, as that company, they were called Trans-European Airways, for anybody who might remember them. And I was flying out of Birmingham Airport, which was great because it wasn't that far away from where I lived. Anyway, unfortunately, after only 6 months, Trans-European Airways, or TEAs, they were also known, went into liquidation. So this was the second time, and a lot of people who were with Air Europe had actually transferred to Trans-European Airways as well. So a lot of us were made redundant for the second time in a short space of time. Positives of being cabin crew are, if you work long haul, or if you do night stops, then that's fantastic, because if you're long haul, you will see some of the countries that you visit. And I saw a lot of countries that I went to visit, which was absolutely fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but it is a lot of hard work, so you do have to be prepared for that. Long haul isn't sociable, so if you are working away and you've got somebody's birthday or somebody's anniversary, or whatever, a night out with your friends, and you might not be there to be able to, you know, go out that night with them, which is a shame. You know, I missed a lot of things when I was doing cabin crew, so it's not a sociable thing to do. So you've got to think about that. Money's pretty good as well, so we would get allowances for while we were away, and some people would not spend any of their allowances and just stop in the room and just not do a lot, especially if they'd been working for Air Europe for a while. But I was like new, and I wanted to go out and see things, and I was like really excited about being in a new country that I hadn't visited before. So I used to go out and spend all my allowances. So yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. It was just so exciting, seeing different places, meeting new people, which could be quite daunting. You know, you're constantly flying with different people, so if you don't enjoy meeting new people all the time, then cabin crew is probably not the thing for you. Obviously, once you've been working for the company for a long time, then you get to know a lot of people there, so you find that you'll know at least one person on the flight, which I did eventually. But yeah, it is a really nice job to do, as I say, because you do see a lot of the country if you work long haul. And also it's, you know, the job is nice if you like meeting people and you like giving good customer service, and it is very hard work. And a lot of people, you know, say, oh, it's like just like being a glorified waitress. Well, it is a little bit, but also you are responsible while you're on that flight with those people. You are responsible for those people. So if anything happens during the flight, say one of them gets ill, or you have a fire. I never had a fire. While I was there was a fire, but it wasn't on my flight, thank goodness. Or, you know, if anything happens, you are responsible for helping those the passengers, the customers, to get off that aircraft, or to make sure that they are okay and they're safe. Also, if somebody gets ill, then you have to first aid training is part of your training, so you have to make sure that, you know, the people are okay and you look after them. So there's that side of it. So then I thought, well, what am I going to do now? Anyway, just at that time, I was thinking about going to work on the ground at Birmingham Airport, because I'd always fancied doing that. I knew some people who worked on the ground and they absolutely loved it. So I thought, okay, yeah. So I applied for to a company called MAS, Midland Airport Services. I don't think they exist anymore. So I went to work for them on the ground. It was just for the summer months. So it was a temporary job. But again, I absolutely loved it. It was so exciting working at Birmingham Airport on the ground. And so my job there was to working on the check-ins, so helping to check in all of the passengers for particular flights, which was, I enjoyed it, but it could be quite monotonous and some people could be quite rude. So yeah, it had its good sides and bad sides, let's say. So other duties involved meeting arriving flights and departing flights. So departing flights involved going to the gate, making boarding calls so that all the passengers came, they knew that the flight was boarding, checking all of the passengers' tickets and passports if they needed passports for that particular flight, and making sure that they all boarded the flight in an orderly and organised manner, and then doing more boarding calls to ensure that everybody knew it was the final call for the flight, and then any passenger name calls for passengers that weren't actually on the flight or hadn't boarded yet, so that they knew the flight was going to be leaving imminently. And sometimes there were times when the passengers just wouldn't turn up, or you'd get one passenger that hadn't turned up, and you'd be looking, I had times when I was actually running around the airport looking for people. So yeah, that was quite funny. But also it was quite, I was working to a deadline, obviously, because a flight has a departure time to make. So I had to make sure that all the passengers were on the flight by the time, the flight needed to leave, basically. So there would be an aircraft dispatcher who I'd be working with. They coordinate the departure of the flight. There's lots of things that they're responsible for. So I'd be working with them to ensure that the flight had all the correct passengers on board and on time for an on-time departure. So arrivals would involve meeting an arriving flight that came in. So on that flight there could be some disabled passengers, so you had to make sure that the company were there to provide the wheelchair if they needed a wheelchair, and also if there were any unaccompanied minors on the flight who I would have to be responsible for, and also to make sure that they got their baggage, the correct baggage, and then pass them over to their parents or whoever was meeting them on arrival. And then I would also stay in the baggage lounge, in the arrivals lounge, for as long as the passengers were there, to make sure that all of the passengers got their luggage. And if there was any missing luggage or any damaged luggage, then I would have to deal with that as well. So that's what working for MAS at Birmingham Airport involved. As I say, I really enjoyed the job. There was a lot of early starts and a lot of late finishes, and I'd also have to work through the night. But I didn't really mind that too much because I knew it wasn't going to be forever, and I just enjoyed that particular job at that particular time. So after that, as I said, that job was seasonal, so it did actually finish at the end of the summer. And I had to then think about what I was going to do next. So as I had quite missed being cabin crew, I decided to give it another go, and hopefully this time I wouldn't be made redundant. So the next thing I did was go back to an airline, well, not back to an airline, but back to being cabin crew, working for an airline which at that time was called Air Tours International Aviation. So I went to work for them at East Midlands Airport. Obviously I knew the job at this point, but I still had to go through all of the training again. Again, I met some lovely people and had a really good time there. But during the summer months, it was so busy, and I was working 6 days a week. The job was based at East Midlands, and although I live in the Midlands, it was an hour's journey to get to East Midlands every day. And then I would be working sometimes 16, 17-hour days, and it was a lot during that summer period. During the winter, it wasn't so bad. We would have a lot of standbys, So I'd be at home, and then if I got called out, I'd have to drive to East Midlands to get the flight. So I had to make sure that I was ready to go, basically, because I think you were only given an hour and a half to get there. So I had to make sure I was ready, and then just went out the door as soon as they called me to say I was needed for a flight. So yeah, I did enjoy it. But then one night during a night flight, I was sitting on a bar box in the galley, and I just thought, do you know what? I don't think I can do this for much longer. It's starting to become a little bit tiresome, because it was a charter company and all I did was go backwards and forwards. So I wasn't seeing any of the world. I wasn't seeing the countries that I was going to. It was just there and back. And it, as I say, it was becoming a little bit tiresome. And so I thought, okay, what am I going to do next?